Hello and welcome to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. This is your host, Ashley from Ashley Taylor Wellness. On this podcast, we talk about all things beauty, health, wellness, and optimization. Being a high maintenance hippie represents not being boxed in, as I strongly believe that one size does not fit all. I'm a nurse turned coach, and I have learned so much about both conventional and alternative options, and I want to help you expand your options. I'm here to inspire you to learn new ways to improve your quality of life and to take your power back. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. I'm very excited about my guest today. His name is Todd Shipman, and he is an advanced Kambo practitioner. I am going to have the pleasure of meeting Todd and his wife, Jill, for a session later in May, so I'm very much looking forward to that. He also focuses a lot on Lyme, mold, and autoimmune disease, and I'm also pretty sure that you work with Simply O3, one of my favorite ozone companies. So,
yes.
Awesome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley. I love the topic that we're going to have today, and just I think it's really something important to educate people on with the data and the science behind it, as well as just people's personal experience with it.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll start by sharing that I received this medicine in 2018. I was at a doctor's office and we did IVs in a room, and someone who was a patient there shared about it and said it was so helpful. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. I didn't really know at the time what I was looking for, but I sat with this medicine, and the next day I woke up, and I'm someone who has historically self-medicated with shopping, substances, just anything to avoid feeling. And I woke up the next day feeling like the most complete whole version of myself. And it was the most peaceful feeling that I'd ever experienced. It was so beautiful. So can you tell us a little bit about Kambo, how you found out about it? Yeah, we'll start with that.
Absolutely. And then also after that, let's also talk about why you felt better, because there's really cool science with that we're doing, because that's what's fascinating thing to me is the actual proven part. So
yes.
So Kambo is a defense mechanism. Basically, it's a secretion from this frog. It is only found in the Amazon. It's known either as a giant monkey tree frog. Its scientific name is Phylomedusa bicolor. It's a pretty good sized frog. It can fit in your hand. They live to be anywhere from 10 to 15 years old. But again, it's a secretion or a sweat from the frog. And now if you are a bird or a snake or any other type of animal of that sort, if you were to consume this frog, it's a defense mechanism. It would very likely kill you. Now, if you are a mammal, there just happens to be about hundreds of these very beneficial bioactive peptides, similar to what basically collagen is for us when we're taking it as an exogenous version. That's a bioactive peptide. So it's a secretion, of course, it comes off, and we can harvest this off of the frog. And then what ends up happening is, of course, is with the ceremony that we do, is it's applied topically with a small small burn mark either on your arms or somewhere on your skin, and then this what looks like almost like a wasabi ball is the Kambo. It goes on that point, and then it gets absorbed into your body.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't go down to the level where any blood is there. It's just a very superficial burn on the skin.
Yeah, it's just the very first layer. It's what I mean, you can use sticks and you can other like vines. I just use an odor-free kind of piece of incense, and I just kind of tap the skin. You want to take that very first layer off and wipe it off, make it look nice, but you're not going deep into it at all. Okay,
so when did you first find out about it?
I first found out, oddly enough, I'm now learning that, is after you did. So 2019 kind of is when I got into this. Wasn't my wife at the time, but now wife, Jill. She was kind of on a journey for addiction, and she had been in and out of AA and NA for over a decade and couldn't find anything. And she'd been introduced to plant medicine, and, she was all over, not in a negative way, but she was all over the place. She didn't have any type of organization with plant medicine. She would do psilocybin, and these are on therapeutic levels. This wasn't like, hey, let's go have fun on a Friday, Saturday night. Like, this was really meant with purpose, and she's doing this with a professional who applies these things. But she would do psilocybin and then ayahuasca and then maybe San Pedro and go over. And the same person had told her, is like, you can be up in the clouds with all of this, and you need to really ground yourself and clean yourself physically. And that's why she needed to try Kambo. And she went into Kambo and she tried it for the first time. And it was an extreme, a very uncommon situation she had with it. But she was also very sick. She had Lyme disease, tons of heavy metals, cobalt, copper, formaldehyde, mercury, all this stuff in her body. And she had not an ideal situation, which is also why we became practitioners later. But how she woke up in the next day was she felt brand new and finally felt alive and kind of felt finally grounded for the first time. And she knew that even though maybe the experience at that time wasn't ideal, how she felt there was something to this. And then she introduced it to me. And yeah, I mean, I did it because back then I was an extreme biohacker. I like to do all the crazy stuff and try it. And I went and did it really with no goals, nothing. I just did it to experience it. And I didn't know what to expect from it or anything. And what I got out of it was so life-changing for me, that we knew that there was definitely something to this. And I'm very science-brained, and the fact that there's so much data with Kambo really excited me. So I kind of got into it, and I became a practitioner because even though we continuously did Kambo and we had it served to us, I just wasn't personally a fan of the way it was being served to us, if that makes sense. So we wanted to kind of change that environment. Not right or wrong, just the way we wanted to experience Kambo. So we learned about it and never expected to be a thing that was a big part of my life. It was more so that so I could serve myself, serve Jill and friends. And during COVID, after that, when COVID hit, we were traveling all around the country nonstop. So
amazing. So your first time doing it, I did do 3 sessions in a moon cycle. Is that something you recommend? Is that what you did as well?
So I did not. I did one session, and then I think because where we lived at the time, there weren't any locals, so they would like fly to us and do it, and then fly home over the weekend, and they'd come back in a month or so. But on that, that's an Amazonian kind of tradition, is to do 3 in a moon cycle. There is no science backing that up besides maybe there's now. I will always kind of try to reserve that there's a lot of anecdotal and a lot of subjective responses and results, but there's also science, and there's both of that. And while there is no science showing that like 3 sessions is going to be what you need to have, we do 3 pretty commonly just because it's kind of like depending on what someone is doing Kambo for. So if you're doing it for Lyme or mold or any type of chronic illness that's really impactful, you would want to do as many sessions as close to possible. So like blitz your body. And that could be 3 in 3 days. That could be 3 in a week. That could be 3 in a month. I think there's a lot of caveats with that to each person. Now, most people travel to us, so we keep in mind the logistics and the finances of traveling somewhere and being gone. So, you have to think of a hotel or Airbnb or all that stuff. So we try to make it as efficient as possible. So we tend to usually, if someone's traveling to us, we'll do like 3 in a week. But again, there's no like data. But I do think the more you can do, the closer together, you're going to really help cleanse your body.
One of the things that it is said to help with, and I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, panima, do you know what I'm speaking about?
Yeah, so like dark, evil, bad energy, bad luck. Yeah, and I think that's a really common reason people will do this. And I also think, again, that's one of those things that's very subjective. And while we may not be able to like scientifically quantify that, there's that. It's there for sure. I mean, we've done almost 2,500 ceremonies with Kambo, and I'd be arrogant to ignore that and not think it's not something really there, because we see it so much. We see it really common with people coming off of grief because it's a forced cathartic. So people either, in relationships and they need to kind of have that final like let go, they'll do Kambo to kind of release that dark energy that they may have. Or just bad juju in a way. It's definitely not one of the more common reasons people do it, but I do have people who will reach out to us and think this is what's going on. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the shock it can do on the body and the cleansing, because it's like when you come out of Kambo, you'll see it. Basically, my wife says it best, it levels you up. It cleanses you. It cleanses your liver. It kind of resets your tolerance with alcohol and drugs. And it kind of brings you a fresh, brand new person. It resets your pituitary gland, your adrenal cortex. So I think it's kind of like you almost come out like a shell, kind of gets removed. And I think that's kind of where people talk about like, hey, like all that bad luck I had went away. Well, yeah, because you had a different mindset. You vibrate at a different frequency. And I think that's my best explanation to like with Panema and kind of removing that.
Yes. One thing that I noticed is that my eyes changed. Like it's almost like my eyes were a little bit brighter. It looked like someone was home. For years, I took Adderall and I worked night shift and I was going through the motions, very depressed. Lots of, when I was under 18, sexual encounters. And I now see that very differently, that I believe we take on someone's energy. So it was almost like I felt like a whole complete person, but just my eyes looked different. Have you heard that before?
It's super common. It's nice to hear that from you, though. It really gives me chills because, and again, it's like, why is that happening? Like my eyes, and on my driver's license still say brown, hazel, and they're green now. And it's like, it's like a greenish blue, which is weird because that's all the way up until we started doing Kambo. And the same thing with my wife. She had brown hazel eyes and her eyes are a bluish green. And I think there's a lot to that because while I don't really focus on like what makes our eye colors change, a lot of people who I do highly respect talk about it as like, well, that's where toxins or heavy metals are stored. And it could be other things for sure. That's about as far as I know. But I do know with my wife, before Kambo, we got all our blood tests. And again, formaldehyde, mercury, all this stuff, cobalt, it was all before and after done. Those were removed from her body. And pretty much just from doing Kambo, but her eyes changed. So there could be some truth to that. But for sure, eye color, as well as way better vision. We have someone locally who is legally blind. He can see, but like, he can't drive or do anything. When he did Kambo and then Sananga the first time, he could read a text message for the first time ever. Wow. So I think there's a lot of like blood flow going to the eyes that help too. Not long term, sorry. It wasn't like he could see for like it fixes from one session, but he'll do it and it will probably wear off within a month.
So you also offer other medicines like Sananga, Hape?
Yeah. We always do Hape and Sananga. I might do it a little different than other people because our ceremonies are also very different. I am not a shaman. I don't pretend to be a shaman. I'm not the person to come to that's going to be. We have high respect for the medicine, but I'm not beating drums. I'm not wearing a robe, which is totally fine if that's the experience you want, but that's not me personally. That's not my personality. So we use Hape strictly as a tool. There are thousands of different types of Hape. So it's also very important that you use the right type with also the right dosage. So with Kambo, we use a very specific Hape, and I pretty much tell people it's kind of like a laughing gas or like a Xanax. Like it calms you down so much. It's meant to be a positive experience, but when there's so much like angst and nervousness coming into the buildup of Kambo, if you can do Hape, it'll like literally just be like what problems? There's no more anxiety. Everyone's like, this is the best feeling ever. So that's why we utilize Hape for the most part is pre-ceremony. And then Sananga, you can use, which is like it's almost like it just feels like habanero sauce in your eyes. And
good way to explain it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always said jalapeno in your eyes. And then when we worked with someone who was an actual pepper farmer, he was like, that's habanero for sure. But we do that for multiple. We use it as a tool, so you can do it afterwards because it's such an endorphin release that it'll kind of change your energy if you were kind of like groggy. But then it also can be really good with Kambo, which we can go into later. Is like if you're a Type A controller in Kambo, purging can be very difficult. So we'll use Sananga because it's so intense, it distracts your brain and finally allows your body to purge things up.
Interesting. Okay, so So
I always usually do it during or post. Yeah.
Okay, I've done it before and after, not during. So it's very interesting. And then Hape usually prior. But if for some reason I'm struggling to purge, then that has been blown in my face, and that will definitely, or not blown in, what is it? San Pedro.
Blown out of your nose.
San Pedro or Hape in the nose will definitely facilitate the purge for me.
Yeah, interesting. Sage works also if you can't purge. Sage and then Salapantos or Cannot say or not. Yeah, the other stuff that smells good, but
Palo Santo?
San Pedro is a different. Yeah, sorry. There you go. But San Pedro is a different type of plant medicine.
Yes,
that you would use.
Okay, that I actually went to Peru and took that after a ceremony, and that was a very long experience. It was beautiful though. It just helped me see how alive nature was. It was very, very cool. So, okay.
It's one of my favorites.
It really is. It's magical. It felt like everything was a rainbow. So, but Kambo is not psychedelic. It is not hallucinogenic. It is not even illegal. At least not in this country. In Brazil, I believe it is. Is that correct?
Australia is the only place where it's illegal.
Okay.
And that kind of started in 2019, 2020 during all like them removing alternative medicine practices.
Okay. So for somebody who has never experienced this, what might they expect when they go into a ceremony? I can share about my experience, but how do you like to do things? What are the steps that someone would go through when receiving this medicine?
Yeah. So I'll start with, as you said, Kambo, Hape, Sananga, all that is globally legal. So none of it is a psychoactive. And sometimes that can be one reason Kambo can be so intense. And if you can do Kambo, I think physically it is the most intense than any other type of earth, plant, or animal medicine out there. So if you can handle Kambo, everything else is much simpler. But you're always in control of your body and your mind, and there's really no escape. And that's why, similar to like if you're in an ice tank, you can't think about tomorrow's bills that were due or yesterday's fight. Like you are so present, and that's what can make Kambo so intense, about that. So when we do ceremonies, again, mine can be a little different because we're not doing this on like an Amazonian traditional aspect. It is my personality. It's more science and based, I think, minded, but it is still very respectful to the medicine. And what we do with just any type of plant medicine, and I mentioned earth medicine, animal medicine, when you come in, is set and setting is so important. So we always open the circle. People will do this different ways. I do this with breathwork. And I'll always tell people that the breath is the remote to the brain. So exactly how we breathe tells the rest of our body exactly how to respond. So when you come in, everyone is very nervous, understandably, because there's so much unknown and you really build it up. So we do some really basic consistency breath work that really just kind of calms everyone down. It allows them internally to kind of come up with intentions and have them like left right here, because some people have very specific purposes for doing Kambo. So we like to bring that up just internally. So after we do that, that's usually, and again, because this is going to be different for other people, this is just how I feel it works best, but it doesn't mean it is the best. And is afterwards, we'll either decide with the person if they want to do Hape, which is completely optional. And we kind of let them sit in that because it's set and setting is great. So Hape it really quiets your mind. So it allows meditation or focusing on your intentions to become effortless. So we'll give people, 5 minutes, enjoy that. It's usually most people's favorite part is the Hape because if done right, it should feel really good. That's the purpose of it for me, And then after that is when we'll burn the dots, and we talk with each person about where we burn the dots, because generally wherever you get it, it's going to be impactful. We use a bioresonance device though, which is really cool, that we can show before and after on body parts and kind of see the difference. And we do see that. So we can kind of treat it similar to acupuncture. So we can put spots on meridian lines, chakra points. And again, we can run these before and afters and show that there's been a nice little jolt, to your root chakra if you want. And that's when that can be beneficial. So we talk with the person and decide if they want it. The most common place anyone gets Kambo is going to be on their arms. Some people do it on their ankles. I'm not a fan of that for specific reasons. Traditionally in the Amazon, they do it because they believe women are weaker. And I can tell you without a doubt, women can handle Kambo way better than men. They're just better with pain management. But if you do it on your ankle, it's further away from your heart, so it takes longer to build up, which can actually be annoying. But then, again, everything is a tool. There are very perfect reasons to be doing it on someone's ankle, especially if they're very fragile, elderly-wise or just illness-wise. So we figure out where we burn the dots. We'll put them on there. And then that is when, so you do Kambo, you want to be fasted. You want to have empty stomach, anywhere from I mean, that's why it's usually most common to do Kambo ceremonies in the morning, because not everyone likes to fast. So you've done your fasting while you slept. It's not a spiritual reason to, as much as it would be with other plant medicines. For me, the fasting is legitimately just so you don't have a solid piece of steak or food in your stomach when you go to purge. So you want to have an empty stomach prior. And then, so what you do when we're starting, while I'm preparing the Kambo, getting it ready, is you're going to drink anywhere from, this is where it can be a little different for everyone else, but like I just think anywhere from about 1 liter to 2 liters of water is, you should never really need to drink more than 2 liters. But anywhere from 1 liter to 2 liters is how much most people will drink. And you drink this all within, I have my people tend to do it within 5 minutes. So it is as fresh as possible in your stomach and you don't want to absorb it. And that is also for me the most uncomfortable part, because you want to drink to the point where you almost throw up just from having water. Like you want to be very uncomfortably full, but everyone's stomach is different. So I might drink 1.5 liters. You could drink 2 liters. And you're drinking this very fast, which makes it difficult. And so once you get to that point, that's when we apply topically the Kambo, and it only takes like 10 seconds, depending, where we're putting it, but it's already been made while you were drinking, so we can just get it on there and place it on you where we'd burn the dots. And then general experience is what I'll share here now. There are definitely places where it can kind of go off into different experiences, which people definitely have. But generally what everyone is going to experience is within the first minute of it being applied onto you, your heart rate will go up really quick. It can be 120, 130. We do a lot of cool experiments where we do continuous glucose meters on people with Kambo. We do heart rate monitors and all that. So we get to see the sugar spike, well, what looks like a sugar spike happening because it's almost like a HIIT class. But your heart rate usually goes up to like 110 to 130 pretty quick. Like within that minute, you're going to feel your heartbeat in your ears. Your face will get kind of like feel like pressure, and you'll feel pressure behind your eyes. Kambo doesn't hurt though. There can be a lot of discomfort, but there's never going to be like, oh my gosh, my head hurts from the pressure. You're getting blood flow going everywhere. You have these peptides that will hit, like you have vasodilation happening, so blood is rushing everywhere. Certain peptides initially, which is a benefit to Kambo, is it lowers your blood pressure. So on a physiological response, that's why your heart rate skyrockets, because you're lowering your blood pressure. You'll get really hot, like you're in an infrared sauna. Kind of feels like a niacin flush. Your skin gets really red. And that kind of kicks in. And then you get these vasoconstriction peptides that will kind of get involved. And then all of a sudden you usually become really pale, green or white. And that's usually when the nausea kicks in. And that could happen in 3 or 4 minutes, and that could happen in 15 minutes. I don't ever put any power over when you purge. I would say over 90% of people do purge. Some people don't orally. You could have a bowel movement too, but there is no like fail or success off of if you don't purge, because it's going to come out regardless. It's just nice to see people purge, and in the way that, because it's going to have that instant relief of all that water in your stomach.
Yes.
So that's where it's like, well, if you can purge, that's great. And most everyone does, but not everyone does. And sometimes your fingers will get tingly, your face poofs up, lymphatic kind of rushes, your lymphatic system's doing a run, but that's when all the peptides are kicking in. And depending on really, again, there isn't science behind this, but like, I think as much as we've done Kambo, if you can really close your eyes once it's put on you, like you can actually feel Kambo like scan your system. What I believe it's doing is it's actually looking for resistance and finding where the resistance was, and then that's what it's going to go after. So these are bioactive peptides, which are great because your body pretty much just takes what it needs. So you could be over there if it's your first session and be having trauma release happening while the person next to you is falling asleep, and you're probably looking at them being like, what is this? Like, how is this person next to me falling asleep while I'm sitting here having the worst cramps of my life in my ovaries and uterus, or whatever it be that's happening. And it's because their body is they have so much physical pain that they're absorbing the dermorphin peptides, which are about 400 times stronger than morphine as a painkiller without the addiction level. So they fall asleep, and it's crazy to see that. So, Kambo really can be very different for every person based off of what peptides their body is absorbing.
Okay. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, the experience of combo, because usually you'll purge, and then once you purge, the nausea goes away, and then it kind of creeps back up again, and you purge again. The experience can last anywhere from like 15 minutes to 40 minutes or longer. With me, I allow the person, like, is they decide when the combo comes off. I always tell them, like, intuitively, you're going to know because there's no more water in your stomach. The nausea is pretty much plateaued. I'm happy to help make the decision with the person, but like, when you do combo, it's your decision. Like, where you're an adult, you're like, hey, I'm done. Okay, I'm not going to sit there and have any control or power over how long it really stays on you, because that can also be, traumatic if I'm telling you. So it's up to you how long it stays on. If you keep it on for 9 minutes, you do. The actual research that I have done, where we have data points for post-combo, is 15 minutes on. So we try to tell people, like, minimum, try to keep the combo on for minimum 15 minutes, because that's where we know that these benefits have been occurring consistently. We've done brain scans, the EEG devices, all this stuff to see the benefits. So it's like, if you can keep it on for 15 minutes, this is what we know is going to be the result. I think keeping it on longer is better, but at least we know that the 15 minutes, because some people 15 minutes is very difficult to challenge.
Amazing.
And then once it comes off, you kind of recalibrate really quickly. So it's kind of off you, and then you can, within probably like 5 or 10 minutes, you're definitely almost back to normal.
Mm-hmm. My experience was, the first time I did it on my back, and I did not start with my arms. So it was right over, I believe, my sacral chakra. And I had a very, very powerful response. And it brought me to my knees. And it was, I jokingly refer to it as an exorcism, because it just feels like I purged like crazy. And then I found this peace within myself, that day, but even the next morning. And the simplest things, the sound of running water, it was the most beautiful thing. I didn't want to be inside. It's like I wanted to be with nature. It was incredible. And I've also heard it's really good when you're starting a new habit, or if you're letting go of a substance, if you're working through addiction, it can really give you that boost. And the effects don't last forever. I've heard anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks. I don't know what you found about that, but it can give you an advantage, if medically appropriate, when starting something like that, letting go of a substance, a new chapter. It just, energetically, it's a reset. That's what I've experienced.
Yeah, it kind of increases your intuition, and I think it's such a physical cleanse that your body just doesn't want things that were harming it, or just not serving it might be the right word, because like things you mentioned, like combo heightens your senses. So, the things seeing things better, hearing things better, smelling things, that's one reason they do it in the Amazon, is so that they can go hunting at night and have better vision, have better smell, hearing, especially when they're going after a leopard that's camouflaged up in the trees. So that is one of their main reasons to do it. But it really just cleanses you. And, like we hear these stories all the time. I have a friend who is a huge coffee person, and I'm super pro coffee, so I'm not just picking on coffee. And he loved coffee. And then the day after doing combo, he made coffee, did everything. He put it up to his lips, and he was like, everything in my body said no to drink that. And he's like, I stopped drinking coffee. And I was like, okay, like that's him. I'm, again, have nothing against coffee. I love it. So, but we hear that all the time. It's technically, I don't always know what people are doing combo for. It's not always my business. I'm not the one doing the healing. The combo is going to do what it needs to do. So not everyone shares everything. But it's very, very common that for someone to come back like 4 or 5 weeks later and be like, hey, I just don't drink alcohol anymore. Like, I didn't even expect that. Like, it wasn't why I was doing combo, but like, I haven't had a drink of alcohol since. We hear that all the time. Oh, you don't have that craving. We have people who do it for nicotine. And many other drugs, because that's one of our passion projects with combo is addicts, and it just cleanses you, and it's almost just like a fresh start, kind of like you said, it's a reset. But there's a lot involved with that, because with combo, the testing that we've done was at the Performance Peak Brain Performance Institute in Houston, and we saw that after we worked with some subjects, they went and got their brain scan, and then did combo for at least 15 minutes. And then we did scanning for 4 months post. And what we saw with that was that the brain stays in a dominant alpha brain wavelength. That means you can handle stress way better. You can handle your anxiety is much more manageable. You can absorb information better, and you're just way more relaxed. And I think that is a huge benefit when it comes to why are you using these things? Is it because you're stressed, or you have anxiety, or are you going to these substances? And then also their overall response, which isn't my favorite, but these are doctors in a clinical setting. They're saying that Kambo effect to the body is the equivalent to a prescribed muscle relaxer. So think like Flexerol or something. So like it just calms you, keeps you in a parasympathetic. And I think when we're not in a fight or flight mode all the time, which Kambo helps you get out of, you're able to make better decisions about your body. And again, like it legitimately, we've seen this. And that's why with people with Kambo, it's like, if we tell them, if you do Kambo, like you want to go as long as possible without drinking, and for sure don't drink right after, because it resets your tolerance. And we've seen it personally.
Alcohol, you mean?
Where with alcohol.
Okay.
Because like my wife, who at one point she'd had 2 drinks, no problem. She ended up, like, this was the day after doing Kambo. This is where we learned that there was something to this. Is she ended up in the ER for alcohol poisoning, like legitimate alcohol poisoning. And it was like 2 drinks was really not much for her in the past. So it's really interesting to see how our bodies respond to it. But it definitely just kind of levels you up, like we say, and allows you to make better, probably positive life changes and use it as that. But it's not a forever thing, because you do need to, just like with anything else, like you have to change your day-to-day habits. But it's definitely kind of like catalyzes you into those new habits.
So someone could listen to that and say, well, how do we know it wasn't the Kambo that caused that, for her to need to go to the hospital? So what would you say to someone who asked that question?
Yeah, I mean, she got diagnosed with alcohol poisoning.
Okay.
It was a day after. So it was like a day and a half later, maybe 2 days. We were down on vacation, and she'd had 2 drinks, and it just put her, like, she was just intoxicated more than could have ever done, and like we ended up in Santa Monica ER because of it, and she was there for a very long time. They had to pump everything. It was just pretty crazy, So, I mean, there are definitely concerns with Kambo, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
I think, because that's, if someone Googles or goes on there, I think it's definitely, I'll preface, it's important to go onto like DuckDuckGo more so if you're going to look at any type of plant medicine or any alternative health medicine, because if you go onto Google, it's only going to implement usually the dangers. I'm happy to address that type of stuff, because, if it's an importance of working with an actual properly trained practitioner, because there's a lot of safety aspects to it. Over the almost 2,500 ceremonies we've done, I've never had as much as a hiccup, but nor would I expect to, because we're doing it in such a safe manner that that's not the case. The problems and issues can concern is, there is a blanket of contraindications with Kambo, and then there's some that are like really solid no's. But the most concern you really need to worry about with Kambo is hyponatremia. So too much water, too much, you kind of dilute all the sodium and electrolytes out of your cells, and it's from drinking too much water. Now, that's why I mentioned 2 liters before, and if you're doing 2 liters, that's not an issue. But now, if for some reason you're drinking a gallon, and then you don't purge, and then someone tells you to drink another half a gallon or a gallon to help you purge, and you still don't, now you have a gallon and a half to 2 gallons in your stomach, that's when there's a concern. But if you're working with a properly trained practitioner, it's not even a thing, because they're not going to allow you to get to that point. There's a monitoring how much water you've consumed, how much you've purged to back out, and that's not an issue. And then you have... and if someone has like heart issues, I always will say, if your doctor would clear you of a 30-minute extreme exercise, then you should be cleared in a heart health wise to be able to do Kambo. Only the reasons I would like the contraindications of doing Kambo that can be dangerous is like if you've done Bufo, which is, it's 5-MeO DMT, so it's a toad, and if you're smoking that, which is a psychedelic, you do not want to do Kambo for almost 2 months.
Interesting.
It can become very dangerous. There are actually people who have passed away from the occurrence, and that's a hard no that no one should ever even mess around with because of the results of that. Because you can get serotonin syndrome from some of these things, so you don't really want to mess with that. It's just not something now you can do Kambo, because Kambo is very common to have done to you prior to any other plant medicine. So you could do Kambo before Bufo or Kambo before ayahuasca or psilocybin. It's really good because it's very common for us before someone does the ayahuasca, because it's cleansing you physically so that the other medicines can do what they need, send the messages as opposed to helping you. So it's very common to do it prior to Aya, because you're very less likely to actually purge during Aya if you've already done the physical cleanse with Kambo. So it's kind of a better experience. You're not having to get up and go purge in your middle of your Aya experience. So so as far as dangers, if you work with someone who has been properly trained, like Kambo is a very safe medicine if done properly, which is the case almost all the time. There are just people who, like, if you can read about, like, there's a scenario right now going on from Australia where someone had done Bufo and then later that day did Kambo. And then they were at this festival. It happened in 2019, but it's making the news right now.
Okay.
Especially with Australia banning Kambo. They've had 2 deaths there, and that's the practitioner, whoever did it. If maybe they didn't know, but like that's a huge no to do. So that's probably one of the more recent. We had another practitioner who does with it, and it's very dangerous, but called Bufo. So they did Kambo, then Bufo, but then they did Kambo again, and he passed away. And it's like that was probably the more recent of it. But again, if done safely, these aren't concerns. I'm very gentle. I think my wife always said I'm too motherly during Kambo, but I'm more focused on the science and the absorption of all these peptides that are in Kambo. And so my focus is you getting those peptides as opposed to some extreme reaction where you're, in the depths of hell, basically, which you can get sometimes with Kambo if it's an intense dosage. So for me, my focus is like you getting the peptides, absorbing those, because that's where I know the benefits happen. The majority of them, of course, but it's not about getting a punch to the nose like Kambo can be, but like I'm very gentle. I have no interest in making it more extreme than it needs to be for you.
Thank you. Because the first time I did it just felt very intense, and like that they wanted more, and I advocated for myself, and I was like, I'd rather start slow. You can always add more. So as far as safety, I do want to talk about that. You mentioned hyponatremia. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's basically when you don't have enough sodium in your blood. And that's because you drink too much water, so that's going to dilute whatever is there. Also, you mentioned the Kambo after 5-MeO-DMT, which is Bufo. And is that because it would cause or exacerbate serotonin syndrome? Is that what makes it deadly?
That's probably the most realistic purpose of it.
Okay.
There's also when you do Kambo, like if you were to do, and that's one reason also, like you need to wait a few days after doing ayahuasca to do these two, because you can do them before, but then you want to be mindful of the timeline if you've done a plant medicine and then you do Kambo. Because for example, if you have done mushrooms the day you do a heavy dose before Kambo and then you do Kambo, it's going to actually re-put you back into a good little psilocybin journey. It like reactivates it in your body. And now if you're doing something as intense, as extreme as Bufo, where you are legitimately mentally in another dimension, like you don't know what's going to happen to you. Like, and they've had people who have jumped off of, not to be super negative or dark on it, but people have jumped out of buildings from it because they don't, like, you just don't know what's happening. And all of a sudden you're, and you don't expect this to happen to you. So, and I think, there's some form of like serotonin syndrome, or there could be other things, but it's one of those things where it's not a, hey, you should be careful. It's really, it's a hard no for me. Like, and as it should be almost any practitioner, which I'm sure, again, if they're trained, they'll say, hey, sorry, you need to wait at least 6 to 8 weeks. Okay.
And thank you for sharing that, because I haven't actually heard that. So the other thing would be medications that are contraindicated. I'm assuming if you're on an SSRI, an SNRI, any type, maybe even 5-HTP, and then I would also imagine if you have high blood pressure that it would be contraindicated. But what conditions or medications would you say would be red flags for you for safety purposes?
Yeah, let's touch on the blood pressure first.
Okay.
If you have high blood pressure, for most people, it's actually very beneficial because
Okay.
we see that combo long term lowers your blood pressure. Now, if you are on medication, which is actually more rare, that if you're on prescribed medication, you would want to just not take it or be off it for a few days if possible, because then it can cause an issue because you're basically they're fighting each other. You're going to take something that lowers your blood pressure, and you already have something that is lowering your blood pressure. So, and vice versa, really, if you have super low blood pressure and you're taking something that raises your blood pressure, it's going to interact negatively with combo.
Okay.
And this is very caveat because it's also very important that you're working with someone who's comfortable working with you at these levels. And, most combo practitioners will tell you like, hey, I'm just not comfortable with this part, and that be that. So, which I can appreciate anyone in the world who you work with that has boundaries on what they're safe doing or not, whether that be. So if someone says, hey, I'm not comfortable with that, like embrace that because they know their boundaries and what they feel safe on, as opposed to just blindly saying, hey, yeah, let's do this. So there are, again, with the SSRI, this is going to be it's a very touchy subject because, even in trainings, you're told like just to stay clear of it or for them to kind of wean off of this stuff. But what I also do with when we work with drug addicts, it's just a whole nother level. It's very different because we'll have people who have done fentanyl that morning and then want to come do combo, and the majority, which is right, you shouldn't be doing combo on those people that have it fresh in their body, basically. But there's ways and methods to do this that I'm comfortable with. I'm not just a random combo practitioner. I went to med school. I have a very deep medical and science background where I'm not doing this just off of something I watched on YouTube, and I also have an amazing support group of people who are experts in so many different things that also help us and consult with us when we're working with drug addicts. So if someone's coming off of an SSRI or any of that stuff, like we work with them and other functional medicine doctors and say, is this the way to do it? And we get a lot of consulting with that. So it's not us just doing it. But in majority, yes, you don't want to do it. But again, if you find a practitioner who has experience and is comfortable working with it, that's great.
As far as the location, you prefer to start with the arm versus going over one of the chakra energy points. Is that correct?
So I think in general, what I would tell someone who's doing combo, sure, the arm is the most general spot. It's a great place to start your relationship with combo because for you did your chakras, which are great, but your chakras are going to be a completely different experience than doing it on your arm.
Yes.
Which also shows you that like points, because some people think points don't matter. And I think they do to a point. Like literally, it's like if you do your arm, it's going to feel different than if I do it on your heart. If we do your heart chakra, it's going to be different than your root chakra or your sacral chakra because it's activating different parts of your body. And it doesn't mean that any are lesser than the other because you're still getting the peptides. But again, if you have certain like life goals, if someone comes and they're like, hey, I just want to do combo for a physical cleanse, I'm like, great, let's do the arms. But if someone's like, hey, I need to figure out what I want to do in my marriage, or I want to do something, I have these goals and I don't know, I have these big life-changing decisions, where should I do it? And then we'll discuss different things like, yeah, maybe we do your solar plexus. My favorite spot to do, it's a little more intense, but specifically on mothers, is the heart chakra because moms just give and give and give and give. And they never really have that opportunity to create the self-love, and like activating the heart chakra is very impactful. So doing something like that, if someone feels like they don't have a voice or their confidence is really low, then we do the solar plexus. Like there are methods to that. But again, as a general, usually as an introduction, I think the arm is great. And then you can expand your relationship with it later by doing other parts. But if someone comes in very clearly, like, this is what I want, then I give that as an option to them. But it's always the person's decision. Okay. Always the person. They're in control of everything.
So, like I mentioned, the first few times were on my back. And then I decided to do my left arm, which represents the feminine side of the body. Correct? Okay. So then the
extension to the heart.
Yes. And then the right side would be more of the masculine side. So someone that I spoke with said that a lot of men will actually do the feminine side and a lot of women will do the masculine side. But I tend to be, and I'm working on this, a little heavy in my masculine energy. So that's why I chose to do it on my left arm. So what would you say to that?
I think, again, Yeah, I mean, to me, there's no science behind that, which also, again, I'm just saying that I always preface things with what we know or have data to. I do think there's a lot of truth to that. I think it's not something I focus on. When I'm talking to someone, I'm not like, hey, if you want to, if you want to lessen the masculine side, do this. The stuff that we're trained on, though, especially like if you're doing the ears and you want more energy, do you do it on the certain spot of your ear on the right side or the left side? So I do believe there's truth to that. It's not something I focus on. My wife, I think that's more like where when she consults with people who are asking those questions, that's when I always defer to her, because that's her world with that, like understanding that. And she'll tell you, yeah, you should do the left side or the right side. And that's why we really balance each other out, because you can have either or obviously a good mixture. But as far as when you're working with us, it's like, what do you want to focus on? Is it more the subjective changes, life changes, or is it like, are you doing it for illness, and do we have data on this to work on?
Okay, so let's talk about the peptides, because that's really what it's about. I always thought it was mostly about the purge and the detox, but when I spoke with you on a prior, conversation, you said it's really about getting the peptides in.
Yeah, so the peptides are where I like to geek out. Because the peptides have been studied since the 80s, back since Peter Gorman brought them back in the mid 80s, and they took them to different places because they were, just a quick story, but the first white man, Peter Gorman, from what we know, is the first white man to have ever experienced Kambo, and they basically ninja dosed him. He was observing this tribe, and one guy came by and cut him in the arm, and then someone else kind of pushed it into his arm, and he had no idea what to expect, what happened, and his experience was so intense that he wanted to figure out what it was from. So they brought him back to these research clinics, and it's been studied. There is about 72 or 73 pharmaceutical patents on Kambo for the peptides, just to show you that there is a lot behind this on what it does. Yeah, the thing about that is that the Kambo frog does not produce the peptides once it leaves the Amazon. Many people believe that this is because of the diet. I don't believe that, and people who I work with very closely that kind of study this stuff talk about how that the oxygen concentration in the Amazon is about anywhere from 20 to 21%. And you leave it can go to 17 to 19%. So that's my belief on it, because the people who I know that I've worked with that information on, that's kind of like one of their specialties with it, not with the Kambo frog, but just everything else that's involved with that. So I think that's kind of cool, though, as far as like that you can't take this frog away from its environment and use it on as far as at a mass production of pharmaceuticals. Now, that being said, there are lots of benefits, and I would love to see, which we're working on, is doing a peptide synthesizer and making this way more, if you need just the pain receptor peptides, we can get you that through a pill, and then you're not having to go through this extreme part. That being said, I can kind of go over, I don't want to overwhelm as far as the names, but I'll go over a few of the peptides, because it is so cool. It is so cool to me that these gifts. Yeah, so Dermorphin. Okay. Dermorphin is, people do it, for extreme pain. We have a lady who is in her 90s, and she kept telling me, actually I've had two clients tell me this, and I kind of thought they were misspeaking at first, but they're like, yeah, I get epidurals for my pain. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, but maybe you're misspeaking, and they have so much pain in their back, that they're getting epidurals to fight their pain. And you're talking about a 90-year-old woman who's doing the epidurals every month. So instead we can do Kambo on her, and she no longer has to get an epidural, and she can do it every month or two and be pretty good with the pain. And that's just one example, but people who have really bad shoulder pain or whatever, we hear it all the time, like the pain is just gone. And I'd say realistically that can last for a good 4 or 5 weeks, as far as if it's excruciating pain. It could be further, for other reasons. You have dermaceptin, and dermaceptin is so cool. The University of Paris and Rome both studied it and said it's the strongest naturally occurring antiviral, antibacterial that they've ever found, like naturally occurring. So dermaceptin it's antibacterial, which is one reason this is so cool for Lyme disease. Anyone dealing with Lyme, I don't say this lightly, but I'm pretty confident I can tell you that Kambo is going to be the most impactful thing you could ever do for your Lyme disease. which is also one of my focuses on what we're doing. Dermaceptin helps with like candida. It helps with parasites, and we see a lot of people release parasites from that. Dermaceptin's also been, which I think a lot of things are, so I'm not trying to like make it the golden figure here, but dermaceptin has been shown to kill cancer cells in labs, so that's really cool. You have peptides that, again, lower your blood pressure. Painkiller, like I said, there's tryptophylins, which are anti-inflammatory, and these cross the blood-brain barrier. So especially if you have neuroinflammation, this really helps. You have cararulin and sauvignon peptides. These help with people with depression and anxiety, and those are the ones that kind of increase your senses, which is really cool. My favorite that not many people ever even talk about or know, but it's just because I like to geek out on this, is bombasins. And these peptides are so cool because bombasins, they basically think of it as like an oil change for your digestive system. So bombasins will go in and they cause this myoelectric stimulation to your intestines, which is why a lot of people tend to have a bowel movement during Kambo, because it's releasing it. It also activates your gastric acid. It releases the bile and pancreatic secretion, and it kind of like plummets it out. And that's usually when you purge, you're purging all this out. So think of it as almost like you're donating blood, like you've released all of this and now your body is forced to create fresh new juice in a way. So you're like kind of starting all over, and which can also help with digestion, I think, because you're creating fresh new gastric acid, new bile, all this stuff. And it does really cool things. And sometimes we don't know why it does it. Like one thing that bombasins does that they found is it lowers your intestines, but it lowers the temperature in your intestines by 1 degree. And it's like, why does it do that? I don't know, but it's doing it. So we haven't figured out all the whys to things. I think one reason when people do Kambo, and these are all theoretical for me, but like it makes you shake, and you're not cold, but you're just like shaking, and you're like, why am I shaking? This is so weird. And it's like, I would just tell people to embrace it, because I think also your body is finally in the parasympathetic and it's allowed to release emotions. And that could be part of the dropping the temperature in your intestines. But at 1 degree, which doesn't sound like much, but people start shaking from it and they're shivering, and it's a good cathartic way of releasing emotions.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think those are like the more important peptides. There's probably like 20 of them that have been more researched in depth, but they have found basically hundreds. I've heard anywhere between 300 and 400 different types of peptides inside the secretion. So there's so much we still don't know.
Well, let's talk about frog face, because I had it. And I had it, I mean, bad. So in your opinion, experience, research, why do you think that happens to some? It didn't happen my first time. But it was, I was unrecognizable. And it did go away after, I'd say 12 to 24 hours. But yeah, can you tell us about frog face, which is just extreme swelling of the face? And yeah.
I do think, the term frog face gets used a little more than like from my experience of what people actually get frog face. Because there's frog face, of course, that lasts 24 hours, which is more common, and then it goes away. And there's people who have frog face where their face is almost unrecognizable for a week. Wow. And I think the more physically, and that's one reason we do specific protocols for Lyme, because I don't know if there's a way to do it. I can show you the photos of my wife. I can send them to you if I didn't. Like, when she had Lyme and she had all these issues, like within 2 minutes, her face would poof up and almost look like a square. And it was different. People are like frog face, yes, but there's frog face. I think most people just get kind of like your facial tissue rupture, or it doesn't rupture, but it really is sensitive, so it poofs up. So when I was working with Peter Gorman, his experience, and when he's been doing this now for longer than any other person besides the tribes, would say that it's very clear that it's there are toxins being built in your body, and your kidneys can only filter so much. Okay. So your face can almost be used as a reserve, and it's finding the softest tissue, which is your face, and like it's poofing up, and those are toxins. And the more you have to urinate, which we see this, the more you urinate, the faster the face swelling goes away. Okay. But then there are definitely caveats to that, because it's like, okay, people because sometimes I get crazy poofy face, sometimes I don't. My wife no longer gets a poofy face, but she had one. I mean, within 2 minutes, her face was like, her lips were ruptured. Like, they're so big. And it was like within 2 minutes. This wasn't like 15, 20 minutes in. But Kambo used to be so excruciating for her. But the benefits after were so, well, hands down, well worth it that she went through it. But then other people will talk about how it's just like a lymphatic rush to the face. Like, it just, all the blood rushes and then it kind of just sits there. So I think there's a little more still to work with that. But again, the people who I've worked with, like Peter is one of the most educated and experienced people that see it in a scientific way. And those were his words to me in person, that it's the toxins in your filter, like your kidneys are finding a place to almost like a reserve for a while. And that's where the poofy face happens. Now, again, like with Jill, which she no longer gets. That's what's so interesting is before she was unrecognizable for like a week. Like it was, her face structure, everything was different, but within 2 minutes it would look that way. So there's also other things, like if you're leaning down, you're throwing up, are you like creating a lot of pressure in your face or something, like if you're, which I always tell people not to do, so it doesn't always, but if you're like on your hands and knees and you're leaning down, you have all this blood rushing to your head and you're trying to throw up, like that could be causing some issues too. So,
well, I found a picture, I don't know if you can see it, but that's what I looked like after one session. So unrecognizable, I think.
Yeah, that's poofy.
It looks like filler gone wrong, but it's not. But a lot of people have that, the lip swelling. Have you ever seen anyone have an anaphylactic reaction during a ceremony, or no, not if done properly?
I don't think if done properly. I do see some, and this is odd because these are things we don't know about exactly, but like with women, it tends to be more with women is their throat will get swelling. And it can feel like an anaphylactic shock like response. But also it tends to also be heavily with people who have Hashimoto's. So it's either something going here and then causing acute inflammation, which goes away later. And again, we have blood tests before and after with Hashimoto's, and Kambo is incredible. But again, I've never had any issue with that, but my wife had her first experience, and again, going back to why we do this, my wife had there is a thing is too much Kambo on you, and at her 80 pounds at the time, she got the same amount of Kambo as the person next to her that was 250 pounds. Yeah. And instantly her throat swelled up and she wasn't prepared. She didn't know what to expect. It was just given to her, and her throat swelled up. She was able to barely purge, thought she was losing her breath. Legitimately, and it was just done in her way that I'd say is unsafe. It could have been done in way better ways. But she had that experience for sure. But then she also had a lot of things going on with her health-wise. But I don't really see that because again, less is more for me. Yes. I don't really see that happening with people. Yeah.
Okay. How many times have you received this medicine, if you are comfortable sharing?
Yeah, so I think with anything, which is also, and when you're doing things that are alternative medicine and functional medicine, the thing is to handle the root cause, and it's not something you should always be doing. So like you can start out with a lot and then you kind of lessen. So for me, so when I was doing it, I had probably done it like 10 times before I decided to become a practitioner and get trained through it. And then after that, when you start going through trainings, sometimes you're doing Kambo on yourself or someone's doing Kambo on you for 10 plus days in a row. And once you kind of hit that point, you're like, hey, I'm cool for the year. Yeah. It's like, I'm not interested in doing Kambo on myself. So when we're traveling, I'll do it more like just for the antiviral benefits. I mean, it's hard to say because like last time I did Kambo, a full ceremony was probably January. And it was kind of like, hey, I just feel like I needed to do it, but I'm at a point where I don't need to do it as often. I do it for physical cleanses. Now, my wife does it with very much intention, so she'll do it on the New Year. She does it on her birthday for new beginning, new cleanse. And if there's sometimes where she's like, hey, I need Kambo, we'll do Kambo tomorrow, the next day, if she feels like she needs it. But it's not something where, you need to be doing it a lot. I'd say like you shouldn't, unless you have like very specific health purposes of doing it, but still like 10 or 12 times a year is probably too much, but you can do it as maintenance if you have this active ongoing thing. But it's not like a root cause fix, like one and done. We see, I mean, you could do combo one time and that can be absolutely life changing. It's not something you need to do a lot, but I think intuitively you'll know if you need to do it again. But I mean, for me, I've probably, because when I go through trainings and do extensive trainings, they're like, hey, this is a 2-week program and you're doing combo every day. And at that point, I'm like, hey, okay, that's good. So but I'm learning from it. I'm learning because if I'm going to do it on you, I want to be able to do that same protocol myself, so I know exactly how it feels.
Yes.
Because so many things are so different. You can drink a liter at the beginning, and then drink a liter during. Like, there's all these different really cool protocols with combo that once you learn more how to utilize it. So.
Okay, so how would you suggest someone find a practitioner if they're interested? And just to be clear, this is not medical advice. We're just sharing about combo and what we've noticed as far as effects and benefits and risks and all of that. But if someone were looking for a practitioner, safety is of the utmost importance. So what would you suggest for someone?
There's a few like globally recognized or like very highly respected organizations that do training. There is Kambo International. And there's the IAKP, International Association of Kambo Practitioners.org. Those are kind of like the gold standard of like safety training. You go through everything, but keeping it very safe. You can go on those websites and you can find practitioners that are certified by them. So like Kambo International is going to do they're not going to have people on there that aren't trained, but you can go on there and put your address in there and they'll find the closest practitioner to you, give them maybe what their focus is, what level of practitioner they are. And same thing with the IAKP. And then there's also Kambo Finder, which is pretty generalized and that works well. So that's another place that people can look. Again, I think it's really important to find someone that you feel safe with and that they're confident what they're doing. And I'm always happy to help people. So if anyone reaches out to me and they say, hey, I live in New York, I can find people who I've either worked with myself or know. I don't recommend people lightly. So it's something where I know this person or I have worked with that person or know them enough that I have sent plenty enough people and they all have great experiences. So I'm happy to always help as much as I can. If someone reaches out to me, if they let me know where they're located, I can help them too.
Well, thank you for that. And on Instagram, it's at that Todd or Modern Kambo. So those two.
It's that odd Todd.
Oh.
So, which is funny because people think it's the Todd. It's just it's that odd Todd.
That odd Todd. Okay, thank you. I thought it was the Todd. Okay.
That's what most people do. I was always biohacker Todd for like 10 years and wanted to get away from the eliteness of biohacking concept. But it's that odd Todd. And then Modern Kambo is the other one that we run, and you can kind of just see. We show, if anyone's interested in seeing kind of like what it would be like to do combo as much as we can, I think we do a good job showing you from like a point of view of like what it's like to go through combo ceremonies. So you can go on there and see all the reels, all the way from the beginning, the ceremonies, what people are doing. I do believe there's probably, we don't like put it in people's face, but there are probably going to be people purging. So just be mindful if you're looking and if any of that makes you queasy, because we try to show the entire experience of what people go through. So it's a great place to educate. And that's our big thing too, is just showing people and educating people on what it's like to do combo and the benefits of it.
Well, I am planning to actually, at the end of the month, sit with you and your wife and a group of people and experience this medicine. So if you're open to it, I would love to document that and share, because I think just for people to see what the process is like. And I don't imagine that people would actually become addicted to something like this. It's not a pleasant experience, in my opinion. What's waiting for you on the other side is amazing, but the experience itself is not something that I think. Have you ever found someone addicted to doing combo, or just, I need to do it all the time?
Sometimes I get some people, definitely not on the addiction level, but some people will text me like I'm jonesing for another combo session, because some people, it literally shifts them immediately. When the combo's on them, they're just a happy-go-lucky person, and they're a mom that's been drained down, and they're just like, this is amazing. This is great. Can't wait. But it's definitely not something that can be addictive. To preface that though, I think the only time you're really going to be mindful is if you've had an eating disorder and have anything where the purging could activate any type of like previous experience that you have with like bulimia or anything like that. Okay. Like that's where I would be mindful. I've never seen it happen though, but it's also not something I want to just bulldoze over and say you can't. We work with a lot of like elite athletes. Again, it goes depend on what type of experience or your health level, but we do it with these Olympic athletes here, and they're doing it because it makes them feel so good 2 days after. Like, so they strategically do it before competition so that it gives them that like senses, that puts them easier in a flow state, and like they enjoy it. They do it as a camaraderie and as a connection, as friends. But again, I wouldn't say anything's ever addictive. I mean, because it's not comfortable for sure.
No, definitely not.
It doesn't get easier. It's not something you build a tolerance on either. So it's not like if you've done it 4 or 5 times, it's going to be easier.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, they call it the warrior medicine. So that does make sense for athletes why they would do that prior, because that is what I believe it was used for culturally, for night vision, for more clarity. Would it heighten the senses as far as hearing as well and vision?
Yeah. And I see that sometimes because we'll be doing combo and someone will have some music playing. They're like, turn the music off. Like it's so loud and it's too much right now. So I would say pretty much all senses more than likely increased for it.
Okay, great. Well, so in wrapping up, you've shared so much. I'm so excited to share this episode and also to experience it with you and the group that will be there. So is there anything that you want people to know that we didn't share or discuss about Kambo?
Really just, again, it's the importance of the education and working with someone who you feel safe with and is properly trained. The great questions to ask your practitioner is either like where they were trained, who they got training from. Not that is a fail or a success on someone, or it should be a yay or no, because there are plenty of people who didn't go through the big organizations that are safe. But then also ask like where they got their combos sourced from.
Okay.
Because that's also very important. I think, which understandably, because it's a commercial based thing for there in Brazil. There's like 7 or 8 tribes that can do it. And anytime that money can be made from harvesting something, you just want to make sure that it is sourced properly. And if you have, that's what's great about these organizations like Kambo International and all these other ones is they source it themselves, knowing like that everything was clean, the frogs weren't harmed. So that when the practitioner knows already that they're getting it from the source, that it's done well and the money goes back to the tribes themselves. So
okay.
It's just a great question to ask as far as the sourcing of the combo, where it's coming from.
Okay, great. Well, so you travel all over and also do ceremonies that way too. So if you're interested, if you've listened to this podcast and you resonate with Todd or maybe Jill, does Jill administer as well?
She does not administer.
Okay.
No, but she holds space. Yeah,
okay.
She is very involved with the space holding of it.
Okay.
She's very involved with it. I just do the actual serving of it.
Okay. So anyone could find you on Instagram and just follow along, because I know you travel and share different places where you will have offerings. And how else can people work with you? Or is that primarily what you're focusing on at this time?
Yeah, so traveling, you can follow us on social media, and we'll always kind of place where we're at. I mean, we've driven like 40,000 miles this year alone, and we're just in May. So we drive a lot, and we use it all around because we like to, because not everyone can travel to us. So if we can travel for conferences, that's what, as far as Kambo, it's our passion project. It's not like a source of income for us by any means. It's us to educate and to help people. But otherwise, that's pretty much what we do as far as working with me. Otherwise, everything else I do is social media management and marketing and all this other stuff for health and wellness companies. Because again, my passion is education, and I like to help other companies create information in a way that's understandable for everyone. So I work with plenty of other biohacking companies with that. But as far as working with me, it's pretty much Kambo. If you have any other questions, any other type of plant medicines, any of that source, I'm happy to be a resource for you to help you from our experience, because I think you don't want to just go out on a Friday night and do ayahuasca with friends. And unfortunately, as much as I want to laugh that that's a scenario, it's a common scenario.
Yes.
People will go and do mushrooms on the weekend in Joshua Tree and without any post integration. And it's really important. So I'm happy to be a resource for anyone on that, as far as helping them find people that it's a safe place to work, and we'll help you with the post-integration.
Yes. And thank you for mentioning that, because safety is so important. These are not party medicines. They are truly medicinal. It's important that you're intentional when you're using this, and that you have supervision, because I have heard that someone did this by themselves and that didn't work out so well for that person. So you definitely need proper supervision, someone who's skilled. And if someone were having a reaction, they could just wipe it off. Is that what you typically do? once it's been wiped off
Yeah.
for me, I feel instantly better.
Yeah, and again, if you work with the right practitioner, they can do safety dots, and they'll do one dot on you. It's like a test site to see how your body's going to respond, and it's a good communication with you of like, how are you feeling? You got one dot on you. How's your heart rate? How's your nausea? Because you don't want to start out with 5 dots on someone. There's no need for that. But if you can kind of find what we call the purge point of like 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dots, once you start to purge, that's all you need. So working with something like that, they'll make it where if something was to go wrong, which again is such a small amount, but it's something you always want to be prepared for, is you just take the combo right off. It takes as fast as you doing that to have it off in a way, and then you should recalibrate pretty quickly. But in general, it's a very safe medicine to participate in.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that in just a few weeks. So by the time this comes out, we will have completed that. So I'll be very excited to share about it. Thank you so much for being here, Todd. I really appreciate it. I can feel the passion, and it's something that I randomly stumbled upon that had a profound effect on my spiritual and emotional health, the most, I would say. So I'm very grateful for people like you who are being respectful of the person and not just, go ahead and do it. More is better. And I can't wait to work with you. So thank you for being here today, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you for listening to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review, ideally a 5-star review if you loved it. All of this is free of charge and really helps me to be able to run the podcast. If you take a screenshot and tag me, I'll repost you and shout you out on Instagram. So tag Ashley Taylor Wellness and High Maintenance Hippie Podcast. If you have any feedback or guests that you'd like to have, I would love to hear from you so that I'm not just talking at you. I really want to deliver things that are valuable. So send me an email with any feedback, suggestions, or ideas for guests at ashley@ashleytaylorwellness.com. And I will leave you with a disclaimer. Please know that this is not medical advice or a replacement for seeking medical care. Everything discussed on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult with your medical provider before making any changes. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.